This is a U.S.-China Media Brief produced by the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. The U.S.-China Media Brief features interviews with experts and other prominent individuals involved in studying and documenting the dynamic and ever-evolving relationship between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. I'm Russell Leong, Director of the U.S.-China Media Brief of the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. Our purpose is to provide a more balanced view of U.S.-China relations for the U.S. media through our media brief and website. Welcome to the UCLA U.S.-China Media Brief. I'm Russell Leong. Today we have the pleasure of having a talk with Professor Mei Renyi, the Director of the American Studies Center at Beijing Foreign Studies University. Professor Mei, thanks for sharing your time and expertise with us.
Yeah.
And why don't we just start by learning a little bit about yourself and how you got into American studies and American diplomatic history.
Yeah. I was born in Canton, Guangdong province, and then I grew up in pre-liberation Shanghai. So actually before 1953, I had my study in Shanghai. So for example, many of the things that were pretty familiar to me in old Shanghai. And I also witnessed, at that time I was already a junior high student of the end of the Second World War, the coming of American GIs in Shanghai, the UN relief material and so on. So in 1953 I came to Beijing for university education. Afterwards, in 1957, I stayed on in the university as a teaching staff. My original field was English literature because at that time it was because of the closed door situation in China. There was no possibility of other things. Actually, my original interest was in history. So I taught, I experienced nearly all those political movements in China over the years. Then came the end of the Cultural Revolution and the beginning of the open door policy. And the United States set up the diplomatic relations with China, and in 1980 or 81, they began to introduce this Fulbright program into China. And the Chinese Ministry of Education accepted that. So I was among one of the earliest as a Fulbright professor to go to the United States. At that time, the requirement was either you had to go into American literature or American history. Anything American. Originally I was trained in English literature. And I knew at that time that if I dropped English literature and turned to American literature, it would be a bottomless sort of pit. So I turned to American history. And I was interested in the world affairs, the development in the world, so I choose one thing in between, that is American diplomatic history. It was in the history department, but it was about American diplomacy. So that was the thing. I went to Yale. I spent a year at Yale history department. And I was with, at that time, the dean of, or the chair of the history department, Getty Smith, who was a very renowned diplomatic historian, working on American diplomatic history. And well, I worked very hard at that time because I knew that when I came back, I didn't have time to work out other things. the teaching load was waiting for me. So I had to prepare myself for the course that I was going to offer when I came back to my university, American Diplomatic History, especially post-war American Diplomatic History. So when I came back, that was in 1983. In 1984, I began to offer this course, American Diplomatic History. 2 or 3 years later, I offered another course, that is US-China Relations. So these were the two courses that, or these are the two courses that I have been teaching up to now. I offer these courses to the undergraduates, to the MA students, and also train the PhD candidates along that line. So that was the situation. I took this course because I got into this field. That was because, as I said, I had to make a choice. So the history and the international relations, a combination of both, a cross-disciplinary course, that's American Diplomatic History. So these are the two things that I've been teaching up till now. Of course, in the course of teaching these courses, I realized that I need to branch out to extend my field. So I covered, American political system, American, especially American value system, the American creed, all these things, because they would all contribute to my analysis of American diplomatic history. So that has been the things that I've been doing. Now, one advantage I had was my command of English. That is, I was trained in English, so that was a thing that I had advantage over people who study purely history or international relations, because there would be less difficulty in reading, in communication with this language. So that is one of the advantages, and that's why sometimes I appear on CCTV 9 and the dialogue section. That was because I could talk more freely in the English language. That's the situation.
The preceding copyrighted program is a property of the University of California, Los Angeles. All rights reserved. It may be used freely for educational and not-for-profit activities. For other uses or to make an inquiry, please contact the Asian American Studies Center at UCLA.